Hello everyone and welcome to the channel, and today I'm gonna review the Honor 90. This phone has a unique look that I personally like, plus it has 200 megapixel main shooter and it has one of the best displays in the mid-range category as per the XO mark. Not to mention that it has a 5000 mAh battery, the Snapdragon 7 Gen 1, 66 watts fast charging, and Honor calls it the first AI vlog smartphone, which is something I'm gonna talk about later in this video. So here I have the 512 GB variant with 12 GB of RAM, priced at 2000 dirhams here in the UAE. And if you want to pay less, you can get the 256 GB with 8 GB of RAM for only 1600 dirhams. I think it's a great deal for the specs you get with this phone, so let me put it into action and I will start with the display. You get a 6.7 inches OLED panel with 91.7% screen to body ratio, which means very thin bezels as shown now on the screen. The resolution is 1200 by 2664, which gives 435 pixels per inch. In my personal use, it looks sharp while reading text, playing games or watching content. It supports HDR10+, a peak brightness of 1600 nits, which is hard to find in the mid-range, and I will show you how it performs under direct sunlight next to the Pixel 7a that falls under the same category. The colors are vibrant, the white balance is on point, so you get a great experience watching HDR or non-HDR content. And here's how the display performs under direct sunlight next to the Pixel 7a. And there is a noticeable difference between the two thanks to the 1600 nits peak brightness, which is on par with the flagship displays. Plus it has a dynamic refresh rate of 120 Hz, which is also a flagship feature. Beside all of these high-end specs, but Honor pushed it even further by teaming up with TÜV Rheinland to create an almost no flicker display by increasing the PWM dimming frequency to 3840 Hz. It simply means the higher the frequency, the less eye strain you get. To show you this, I will set my camera to 1/800 shutter speed, increase the ISO to 5000, lower the display brightness to 30% or less, and open a blank page. On the left, I have the Pixel 7 Pro, on the right, I have the S23 Ultra, and the Honor 90 is in the middle. You will notice here that the Honor's display is the only one that doesn't show these thick black bars because it has a much higher frequency and in return the least impact on your eyes. Overall, I'm really impressed by the display quality of the Honor 90 as it ticks pretty much all the boxes and you cannot ask for more in this price range. Now let's talk about the camera. You get a 200 megapixel main sensor, 12 megapixel ultra wide with 112 degrees field of view that supports macro shooting with minimum focus of 2.5 centimeters, a 2 megapixel depth sensor, and a 50 megapixel selfie with 100 degrees field of view. Let's start with the 200 megapixel main camera. You have the option to take a full resolution 200 megapixel photo by switching to the high-res X mode or a 12.5 megapixel in the normal camera mode with a 16:1 pixel panning. Here's the first shot comparing both. The two photos look identical, but there is a massive difference in the level of detail when I zoom all the way in. But beside this, the second advantage of this bigger sensor is the lossless 2x zoom that matches the quality of the optical zoom. To show you what I mean, I took this shot at 1x and 2x. When I crop in digitally on the 1x image to match the 2x one, you will notice here that the 2x shot has a lot more details. So it's not just a digital crop, but instead you will get a higher quality, and these are the main advantages of the new 200 megapixel sensor used in the Honor 90. And now let's talk about the other things. The morning photos coming out of the Honor 90 lean towards the warmer tones and saturated colors, same as Samsung phones. So it depends on your personal taste if you like it or not, but what's great about this camera is the HDR performance coming out of all lenses, as it handled the sun, the shadows, and the highlights really well. Moving to portraits, they have the same saturated colors as expected and the blur effect looks good to me. But I'm really impressed by how sharp they are. Either in 1x or 2x, the level of detail shown here is great as it matches the high-end flagships, if not even better. The only problem is the subject isolation was far from perfect in the 1x photo as it messed up the area around my ear and blurred my left arm entirely, while the 2x image has a much better subject isolation, so I hope it will improve with future software updates. When it comes to the zoom, it reaches up to 10x and it delivers decent results with enough details as shown in these example photos taken at multiple zoom levels. And as I mentioned before, the ultra-wide can take macro photos with a minimum focus of 2.5 centimeters, and you can see how sharp they look with tons of details. The front 50 megapixel camera is another great advantage of the Honor 90. Look at how sharp and detailed the images are. And even when I used it to take portraits, it gave me a perfect subject isolation with no errors. The HDR performance is also impressive, so you cannot go wrong with the front camera of this phone. When it comes to videos, it can record up to 4K 30 using all lenses. The morning videos have vibrant colors, good HDR and decent image stabilization, and I like how wide is the front camera, which makes it easier for vlogging. You also get the multi-video mode that can allow you to record using multiple cameras at once, like using the front and back cameras or the wide and ultra-wide, with the ability to choose between picture-in-picture view or split view based on which lenses you use. But keep in mind that the multi-video mode can only record in 1080p. Let me also do a quick mic test and show you the new noise reduction feature. So here's a quick video to test the microphone of the Honor 90 while filming videos. I'm in a noisy environment right now, and you can see over here the highway and the cars are making a lot of noise in addition to some wind. So now that's my voice without the noise reduction feature, and now I activated the noise reduction. And please let me know in the comments what do you think about my voice after activating the noise reduction. And the best part about this feature is the ability to activate it or deactivate it without interrupting your recording. So let's give it one more try. This is without the noise reduction, and here is my voice with the noise reduction. As you heard, it's a day and night difference. Now let's talk about the night photos and videos, and that's where the Honor 90 struggles a bit. So let me give you a quick summary. First, the main camera shows a noticeable amount of lens flares if there is a strong light source in the frame. The ultra-wide is not good for taking night photos. The night portraits are soft, and there is no option to activate night mode for portraits. And finally, the night videos are noisy and shaky. But you still can take amazing night photos using the main camera if there is no strong light source in the frame, and the selfie camera is still good enough at night. Now it's time to talk about the AI vlog features of the Honor 90. This camera uses AI to suggest the best video recording mode based on what it sees in the frame. For example, I showed the camera 3 photos of myself, and only one of them was closer to the camera, and it suggested to use the portrait video mode to make the subject stand out, which makes sense. And when the camera sees one or more pets in the frame, it suggests the multi-video mode to record your reactions while capturing the moment. The camera also suggests the solo cut mode if you have 2 or more people in the frame. This mode gives you the option to track a specific person by tapping the plus sign that floats on top, then it will always show that person in a floating pop-up even when you move the camera. Plus, you have the ability to switch between different people while recording, which is really nice. And lastly, it will automatically activate the close-up mode for macro videos when the subject is too close to the camera, and the HDR mode when you take videos in a sunny environment. I personally like the solo cut and the multi-video modes quite a lot, and I wish to see them in more phones. So these are the key selling points of the Honor 90 and how they work, but there are a lot more to talk about, and now it's time for the design. The first thing that caught my attention in the design is how light it feels in hand. This phone weighs 183 grams despite having a 6.7 inches display and a 5000 mAh battery, which makes it very comfortable to hold, in addition to the curved corners that will make it even easier to hold the phone in portrait or landscape orientations. Plus, it has a very slim form factor, so you can easily reach the sides with your thumb, and also the buttons are placed perfectly. I didn't have any problems with them. When it comes to the display, it has curved edges, and that means you have much thinner bezels. Combined with the hole punch cutout, you get minimal distractions when you use the Honor 90. Now let's take a look at the back, and here I have the silver color. It's called diamond silver because it has this diamond texture on the back that you can feel with your fingers, and I think it looks really nice. The only downside here, it has a glossy finish, so it's a fingerprint magnet, but thankfully it has a bright color and it doesn't look as bad as darker colors. You can get the Honor 90 in 2 more colors, the emerald green, which has a matte finish, and also the midnight black that has a glossy finish like this one. But I don't recommend getting the midnight black if you don't want to see a lot of fingerprints on the back of your phone. The second thing I like about the back of this phone is how the camera module looks. It looks very unique and premium because it has a metal ring around the camera that also gives a very nice contrast with the black color. The only downside here is when you put the phone on a flat surface, it wobbles a lot from the top left and bottom right corners, but other than this, I really enjoy the way it looks. I also found that the fingerprint is placed at the very bottom of the screen, which makes it slightly harder to reach with your thumb, but this is not a huge problem because after using the phone for a couple of days, I got used to it, but I wish they had the fingerprint placed in this spot for easier access. Also keep in mind that this phone doesn't have any IP rating and the owner didn't provide information about the materials used on the front and the back, so I'm not sure if the back side is plastic or glass, but it feels more like glass to me. And overall, the build quality of this phone is very premium. So when I apply a lot of pressure on it from the front and the back, it doesn't bend or flex and I don't hear any cracking noise either. So it looks and feels very premium. Now let's talk about the performance and the battery life of the Honor 90. And I have to say that I'm really impressed by the performance of the Snapdragon 7 Gen 1 used in this phone for 3 reasons. First, it has a very snappy performance. Secondly, it's very efficient on your battery and the thermal management is great. So let me give you an example here. I took this phone in the afternoon to take a lot of photos and videos to review the camera and I kept shooting for more than an hour in a very hot weather. I was sweating like crazy and I didn't get a single thermal warning from this phone. On top of the amazing Snapdragon 7 Gen 1, you can choose between 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage, or the 12GB variant with 512GB, and this is the one I have over here. And I have to say that this phone is giving me a flagship-like experience when it comes to the smoothness and how fast it opens apps and also while scrolling. So I don't have any complaints when it comes to the performance of the Honor 90. And when it comes to the battery life, it's even better. If you take a look here, you will see I'm using cellular data and that's the case since 8 a.m. And I have 78% battery remaining. And when I go to the settings and then battery, you will see here that I have about 2 hours of screen on time. And that means I lost 11% per hour. So when you do the math, you will find that this phone can give you up to 9 hours of screen on time on cellular data, which is impressive. And when you take a look at the apps I used, you will find that 48% of the time I was using the camera, which is one of the most power-hungry apps you can ever use on a smartphone, and I'm still getting impressive battery life. On top of this, you get a 66 watts fast charger already in the box, and let me show you how fast it can charge your phone. When I first got the device, it was at 18% battery, and after plugging the phone to the 66 watts charger for 30 minutes, the battery became 75%, which means I got 58% of battery in just 30 minutes. And keep in mind that this phone has a 5000 milliamp battery, and being able to charge almost 60% in just 30 minutes is great. The only downside in the battery department is the lack of wireless charging, but other than this, it's almost perfect. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about, and if you are wondering about the other things like the call quality, the reception, the Wi-Fi speed, and so on, all of these are well covered with the Honor 90 and I don't have a single complaint, but you need to keep 2 things in mind. First, this phone doesn't have stereo speakers, only the one at the bottom, so the sound quality is decent but not great. Also, it doesn't have a haptic engine, only a normal vibration motor, so you don't get these precise haptics when you use the device. But overall, I think the Honor 90 is a great phone for its price range, and that's for many reasons. It has the Snapdragon 7 Gen 1, which is efficient in terms of battery usage and thermals. You have a 5000 milliamp battery, a 66 watts fast charging, a great display with 120 Hz refresh rate, a 200 megapixel camera, a design that looks unique and feels comfortable to use. So I think the number of advantages you get with the Honor 90 are much more than what it lacks. And that's what I think about the phone, and please let me know in the comments what do you think as well. But for now, thanks so much for watching and see you the next video.